شغلة. Just to make an announcement before we begin. For the brothers and the sisters, last night an incident occurred. One of the brothers was driving home, and on his way someone threw an egg on the windshield of the car. The main purpose of this is they throw the egg and they want you to activate your wipers so you wipe off the egg. The problem, this is not water, it will not go away. Rather, it will spread all over the windshield. Then naturally what do is you pause or you pull over on the side of the road. Once you pull over, they come and take your car or rob you. So it's a plan that many people use. So inshallah, what you must do is do not activate your wipers. If someone throws an egg on your windshield, just slow down and take caution. Check your mirrors if anyone is following you, and drive slowly back home. Do not use your wipers and do not pull over, because that's the plan, that's what they want you to do. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you all safe on the way back home. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi wa Mawlai. Is it on now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So much.
Dear sisters, an announcement is that to be careful on your way back home. There's a scheme where people throw eggs on the windshield, and that windshield, when you activate your wipers, the egg will go over your windshield. Then you pull over, and once they pull over, they come and take your car or rob you. So do not activate the wipers so the egg doesn't spread along the windshield. Rather, just slow down, take caution, and drive safely. For the sisters especially, just make sure no one is following you. Check your mirrors, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you safe. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi wa Mawlaya ya Rasul Allah. وعلى آل بيتك المعصومين المظلومين. لعن الله من ظلمكم والغاصبين لحقكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات. يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن شر الدواب عند الله الصم البكم الذين لا يعقلون، ولو علم الله فبهم خيرا لأسمعهم ولو أسمعهم لتولوا وهم معرضون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. To enlighten the atmosphere and for the opening of the hearts and to hasten the appearance of the Imam, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dear respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. By the grace of God, Alhamdulillah, we are halfway through the 10 nights. Tonight is the 5th night of this Muharram. The topics for the past 5 nights have all been practical topics. topics where we can improve on our life. As Muharram should not be a topic, should not be a month that could come and go every year, but rather should be a month of contemplation. So you may hear some of their terms overlapping on each day. Each night you might hear some similar terms, and that is because all of these are actually necessary and relevant to our time. The era we live in are much different to how our fathers or our grandfathers lived in. We live in a much more faster moving society. The topic tonight will be about how our minds influenced and shaped. In reality, the talk, it was very hard to find a specific title. He could name it many things, and one of them could be the poisoning of the minds. Me and you here, our minds and our thoughts and our thinking, our behavior is all according to our culture. We either learn from our parents or the country we live in, and we uphold those behaviors. We uphold those thinkings. However, when you look at today, you see many of our values and other people's values have been stripped away. Meaning what was something called sacred has become completely ordinary. What was something seemed as immoral 20 years ago is now normal and even promoted. This sudden change must be analysed. How can something go from such immorality to something that is promoted within the whole globe? Was it a specific system? Was it a specific movement? Or was there a specific leader behind this? Unfortunately, this change comes with something we all possess, and that is the power of technology, the power of social media, and the power of internet. Me and you, my brothers and sisters, unfortunately are addicted to these gadgets. That if we were to be stopped for 20 minutes without using anything, then we lose our minds. There was an experiment conducted within a couple of participants, about 15 or 20 participants, and they were put in a room with nothing. They said stay in that room for 20 minutes, and there's nothing for them to touch or play with, except for one button. And that button sends an electric shock to their bodies. They get a slight electric shock to their bodies. You wouldn't believe the results, because within 20 minutes, these people lost their mind to the point 87% of those participants pressed that button and shocked themselves because they had nothing to do. There's one person that pressed that button 150 times in 20 minutes. There's another experiment on YouTube, probably know the YouTuber Mr. Beast. He did a challenge to himself where he stayed in a room for a whole week. He doesn't even have a clock to look at the time how much he's spending in that room. In his video, he always complained that I'm losing my mind. The first day, second day, okay. But until towards the time of the end of the period, which is 1 week, he said I was about to lose my mind. Why? Because we need something to play with. We need to touch something. And this kind of reminded me that how did our Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salam spend the time in prison? And what did he say? He said, Allah, I thank you to give me this time so I'm able to worship you. This guy, the YouTuber in the room, he never even thought about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore we find when these things are presented to us, we must do something. The Quran says, وَتَعِيَهَا أُذُنٌ وَاعِيَةٌ, that an ear, a receptive ear, may be able to comprehend this. That if you have a receptive ear, you may be able to analyze what's going on around you. Meaning sometimes we look at entertainments and we may think it's just entertainments. But sometimes there's deep messages that we do not understand. Let's tonight discuss this topic. Inshallah, it will be a small talk because the past 2 nights or 3 nights I've been taking too much of your time. So inshallah, we'll just suffice with 3 points for today. The first point is we must understand what is going on around the world. This, unfortunately, needs to be understood by everyone. Because if you do not understand this, it's as if we say, خارج التغطية, you're outside of the range or reception. What is it? There are 2 theories we will understand tonight. One of the theories I may have mentioned in the past 2 nights. The first theory, it's by a known philosopher and a thinker in the US called Samuel Huntington. The theory of clash of civilization. He made this book after his teacher did his book. His teacher was called Francis Fukuyama. Francis Fukuyama wrote his book, The End of History, in 1992. He published this book in 1992 after the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union. After this battle, what happened is the US was seen as victorious. In his book, he said that it was not a victory of nation, but rather a victory of ideologies. The American liberal capitalist ideology versus the Soviet Union. And that ideology won. Therefore, the end of history, meaning this ideology cannot be changed and is now the presence of the world. Samuel Huntington, which is his students, he disagreed. He said, as much as I like to agree with my teacher, it is true that wars with tanks and jets will not happen anymore, meaning wars such as World War I, as big as World War II and the Cold War. He said these will not happen anymore. But he said one specific thing. He says this new war is rather used by different tactics. It's a war by civilization, which is why he called this clash of civilizations. That meaning you as a country, as a Western world, it attacks a specific country. What does the Western world specifically attack? Or who? They say two enemies the Western world had. China, from the Chinese community, there's a group called Confucianism. They are the followers of Confucius, which is a guy that lived in the 5th century. Some people call him as a prophet, but Allahu A'lam. The second, he says, is Muslims. What about Muslims? Specifically their religion. He says these two are the main enemies for the Western world. And they try to remove the culture and the traditions of the Muslim world and to force the culture of the Western world. That is what the first theory that we see in the book of Samuel Huntington. The second theory is called the soft power. The soft power is a book by Joseph Nye. He posted his book in 2002. He published this book in 2002 and he said we have two things. We had hard power and soft power. Hard power, he said, is like tanks, fighter jets, grenades, missiles, bombs. He said that is what's the hard power. Soft power, I'm going to read his exact definition of soft power. He said soft power is the ability to attract and influence others to achieve the outcomes you desire. How? Not through force or military threats or material pressure, but through attraction, persuasion, and appeal. He says that if you want to attack a nation, then you not attack them by military threats or by material pressure, but rather you persuade these people and convince them to take on what you want them to take on. So you don't force someone to take on your traditions. Rather you convince them, you persuade it to them, you attract them to take on the idea that you have. Then he compares the hard power and the soft power. There are three differences. He said hard power is direct, meaning if I have a gun and I want to attack this country, I have to be in front of them, right? One in front of the other. He says soft power, no. You do not have to be right in front of the person. You can be thousands of kilometers away. Furthermore, he says you could be to the point where that person does not know there's an enemy. You're an enemy, but he would not even know there's an enemy. That's how the power of soft power. Second, he says, hard power is with materials. You destroy everything. You've seen wars. When you attack a specific nation, you destroy most of the things. And what solution does the enemy have? Either one, you kill him, he's defeated, or two, he surrenders. Either one, you have total control over the body of the person. You know, when you invade a country and you defeat them, then you take those people probably slaves as captives, correct? He says soft power, you have total control over the mind. The body is fine, but you take control over the mind of the human. And that is much more powerful than the body. The third difference, he says hard power is very expensive. Just now, the US and the Iran war costed the US $113 billion. Since it's reached the conclusion that these numbers have been posted. You can find them online. $113 billion just in what was it, 3 months? Less than 3 months? 4 months, actually, 28th of February till now. 3 months and a bit. $113 billion. Is with the soft power, then it's with the tools of soft power are much more cheaper. He gives the example of what we've mentioned 2 nights ago, the TV, the cinema, the music, the social media, and the internet. Therefore, he says that these differences have made invading other countries and taking people's culture and identity much more easier. To the point where he's actually said this. He said, what's the point of having tanks, fighter jets, when we can convince a whole civilization by what? By Ninja Turtles and Pokemon. That means with Pikachu and the Leonardo, the guy in Ninja Turtles, he can control a whole nation. This is what he says. The problem with this, when we say this, people come, oh, you're doing a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy, this is what he says. Why do we make the person that admits this as a conspiracist? You know, this man, he has a high status within the politics of the US. He's not an ordinary man. He's a researcher, high level of politics. Therefore, that person who accuses the others of doing the conspiracy are the conspiracists themselves. So the first point is that we have a new type of war, which is called the soft war, or the soft power. The second point of discussion before we enter it, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Second and the third time, Ghafarallah lakum. What happened to the third time? Now we know what are the tools that are used in the soft power, or the soft war. But what are the methods? So what does the Western world use to commit this soft war? Actually, there's 10 different ways, but we'll suffice with only 4 methods for tonight. And these 4 methods could be divided into different categories. The first category would be, what are the things that help them remove ideas in our minds? The second category will be, what are the things that help them grow different ideas in our minds? We'll start with the first one. There are 2 ways of removing ideas from our minds. The first one is stereotypical image. This is a question for the boy, stereotype. What does stereotype mean? Since it's a hard question, it's a fixed image of a specific group of people. This stereotypical image, they do that through movies. They use a specific group and give them a specific image. I'll give you an example. If you look at the movies that have a girl wearing a hijab, what do they associate this girl with? They make that girl seems like she's a failure, that she doesn't know what to do, she hasn't achieved any goals, and she is just following her husband. Then they put another character without a hijab, and that character is successful, independent, a true feminist. What does that do? It makes us, the viewers and the audience, think that hijab leads to failure. Without hijab, you become successful. Therefore, the only obstruction for a female to become successful is what? The hijab. This does not happen overnight, but the more they repeat it, the more they show it, unconsciously this gets imprinted. Unconsciously this occurs in our minds. Even when you look at other movies when they have a view or a scene of terrorism, right? They see the group of terrorists, they have the Quran with them. Or they recite a couple of verses before they do the operation. What does that do? It means that Quran is a violent book. Whoever follows it becomes a violent person. Therefore, they make a specific image against people. That is the first one. Second way is dark humor. And dark humor is what? Jokes or humor about things that are taboo. About things where you have a red line. For example, when you talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you talk about the Quran, these are red lines. You cannot joke about them. But now everything seems like it's a joke for everyone. Whatever you can find, put your hands on, it's a joke. How many movies insult Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a joke? Or insult God? Or Jesus, whatever it is, but the same idea. They insult that God. Why? So it may seem normal for you. Maybe the first time you say, this is wrong. Second time, you accept it, but not as much. Then, the more you see it, you become the one that does the joke. I received a clip a couple of days ago, on these days, and in that clip, there was a person sitting on the minbar, acting like he's a lecturer. He has got the turban on, a Sayyid, the black turban. He sits and he reads from the papers and he says a joke of a hadith. And someone sent it to me and I said, what's the point of this? He says, it's funny. I said, how do you even find it funny? He's making fun of our majalis. What does that do? It makes everything as a joke. Remember the time where that person in, I forgot which country, he drew the Prophet, the teacher. What happened? The student went and killed him. How many normal sometimes you find the shirts having Jesus and they got the rainbow flag on top? They said everything's a joke, fine. I mean, I'm not saying what the person did was right, killing his teacher, but I'm saying sometimes you have to be intolerable. That when someone makes a joke of something you know it's sacred, dark humor, it must be stopped. Because once it becomes a joke, it becomes a bigger joke, then it loses its sacredness. It's no longer sacred in the views of people. Therefore, these two ways were mentioned in the first category, which is what are the things used to remove ideas from our minds. Second category, which is how to grow ideas in our minds, is changing or misleading titles. Misleading titles means that if I have something and I change the name of that specific thing, you will fall for it. How? If I said this drink is an alcoholic drink, the first thing you say is, no, I don't want it. But if I said this is a social drink, you become hesitant. Simply by changing the title of this. It makes it sound more presentable. When you look at, for example, the issue of homosexuality, they change the name. I don't want to mention the names, it's kind of inappropriate. But they make it seem so normal, where even in every TV show, every cartoon, there has to be a figure that refers to that specific ideology. That's what makes it look normal to us viewers. Or for example, when we look at musicians, rappers and singers, what do they put them under? Under the category of what? Artists. What kind of art is that? Why? It makes it nicer for the person to take in. It makes it sound much better for the person. The Quran says, لا يسخر قوم من قوم. Oh sorry, Najib al-Agha. لا يسخر قوم من قوم. Why? People, what do they do? Prank. Oh, it's just a prank, relax. It's just a funny joke. Makes fun of that person, throws stuff at that person just under the topic of pranking. Therefore, that's the first one. Second one is promoting false role models. When they want to promote someone, the media especially, who do they promote? Who do they give their viewers and the influence and everything? Is it someone who's a scientist? Is it someone who's a thinker, philosopher? No. The celebrities, the musicians, the rappers, the social media influencers, all these people, they put them as what? As role models to us. What does that do? We see them, we look at them, we follow them. Gave you the example of Ronaldo the other day. The kid watches Ronaldo, how he plays, tries to copy the way he plays. Then he even changes his style, just like according to Ronaldo. Why? Because he wants to look like him. There's something going on, or it's been going on for a while, fashionista. These are fashion influencers. And that fashion influencer shows her life, what she does in her day-to-day life. If we have a little girl watching these fashionistas, what happens? That little girl sees that she's getting views, that she is popular, that she is famous, she is loved, she is liked. Immediately that little girl will think that this is what it requires to be successful. That to be successful as a woman, that's what you must do. You must become someone who shows their fashion and portrays their beauty. And unfortunately, many people fall for this. Why? They have no awareness. Therefore, that is the second issue of having these growing ideas in our minds. He mentioned 2 in each category. Now, us as Muslims, moving to the third part of discussion, how do we battle this? No, everything has an issue. Inshallah, everything has a solution. Cannot leave without saying some solutions. The biggest or the best solution in this is that we must increase our knowledge. The Quran mentions a lot of nations. It says Qawm Fir'aun, Qawm Musa, But there are specific nations that will never finish. So Qawm Musa obviously dead. Qawm Fir'aun obviously dead. But there are some nations that will remain alive as long as humanity is alive. And those qawms are who? Those nations. قَوْمٌ يَعْقِلُونَ وَقَوْمٌ يَجْهَلُونَ. The nation that are ignorant and the nations that understand. The nation that are knowledgeable. The Quran always mentions and directs people to become min ulul albab, to be of those who are open-minded, to be those who are thinkers. What else? What do we always say as Muslims? طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم ومسلمة. Correct? From when? From من المهدي إلى from the cradle to the grave. You carry knowledge. Because many people accuse Muslims and religion of being what? Of being a religion of stupidity. Of being a religion of emotions. That's only about emotions. The liberalism, what do they give that famous statement? That al-deen afyun al-shu'ub. That the religion is the opium of people. Opium is a specific drug that kind of gives you pain or hides the pain. Meaning that as believers or religious people, you always believe that there's someone that will help you. So no matter what difficulty you go through, you still believe that there's a God that could save you. So they say this religion does not actually give you anything. However, we say the opposites. We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran always mentions for us to be safeguarded. Safeguarded from what? From number one, safeguarded against deviation. That it's not enough for us to just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, it's good. But is ibadah enough? Is just worshipping every single day enough? No. Why? شر الدواب الصم البكم الذين لا يعقلون. That the people, the worst of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones that are deaf and dumb. Deaf and dumb not mean literally. Metaphorically meaning they don't understand, they don't want to learn. إِنَّهُمْ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They are just like cattle, just like animals, but rather even worse. Who? The ones that do not want to learn. The ones that we do not understand. The hadith says, لا خير في عبادة ليس فيها تدبر. That there is no good in any worship if there is no understanding, if there is no knowledge. That means when we read the hadith of 1 hour of contemplation is better than 1 year of worship, it's true. That we as Muslims, it's not all about our emotions, but it's about understanding and learning. In the Battle of Jamal, there was a judge in Kufa, and the leader of that battle, she went to the guy in Kufa and she told him, fight for me. He said no. She said, I'm your mother, you have to fight. She convinced him and at the end, he went to fight. Do you know how he came to fight? He had the Quran and a necklace around his neck. And he had 2 swords. And he was fighting. Then after, 7 days, the battle of Jamal, 7 days, and Imam Ali alayhi salam spent 3 days walking around to check on everyone. They saw this guy and they said he has the Quran, but he fought against the Imam of his time. Meaning, yeah, you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may read Quran, but you will still do things that are wrong. Why? Because you do not have ma'rifah. You do not have understanding. The Khawarij that fought against Imam Ali alayhi salam, the start of them, those 10 that started off, they used to be people that memorized the entire Quran. They used to have the best of voices when it came to Quran. They used to be the best of worshippers. Read in the Quran, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Right? What does this prayer do? It makes you avoid fahsha and munkar, the haram. When you look on the 10th of Ashura, the people, the Amr of Yazid, they committed the biggest munkar. Right? Why? They didn't have any understanding. They prayed the day of Ashura. These guys, the Amr of Yazid, prayed that day. But what did they do? They fought against the Imam of their time. Therefore, we need what? The first one, to safeguard from deviation. Number 2 is safeguard against deception. So there's deviation and there's deception. Meaning these tools that we mentioned before, by the power of soft power, these gadgets deceive us. And shaitan uses these tools to deceive us. We need to have what? Understanding of this. The Quran says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيِّنُوا. That when you get a sinful person with news, verify it. Why do you verify it? أَن تَصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ فَتَصْبَحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ. Just in case you harm people with your ignorance, then you become of the ones that are regretful. So, after this, what are the things we can do today to help us avoid these? Because at times when you have people deceiving you, it's very hard. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf Thaqafi, may Allah curse him, he one time went to stop the revolution of Abdullah ibn Zubayr. and he laid siege on Mecca, the Kaaba. He laid siege on the Kaaba, and he had catapults. You know, catapults are the things that throw the rock. He had about 5 of them, and he was around the Kaaba. And some of his army said, "We have to stop. This is the Kaaba. We can't just throw this. We might destroy it." He says, "No, don't worry. It's completely fine." So they attacked. All of a sudden, as soon as the attack began, lightning started to happen. As they saw this lightning, they said, "Oh Hajjaj, are you sure we should continue?" He said, "Yes, the Quran says that chaos happens, natural disasters happens, let's continue." They continued. Then what happened? Lightning killed 22 people of them. What did he say? He said, "Look, these things happen, sacrifice happens, people die, we still may continue." They said, "Okay, we continue." Then what happened? A lightning came and destroyed one of the catapults. What did he say? He said, "Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted this from us." Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the Qurban of Qabil and Habil when the fire came down from the sky. Therefore Allah accepted this of the lightning that came down and destroyed these catapults. These people said, "Okay, let's continue." What's the problem? They've been deceived. Shaitan been deceiving them. That follow, whatever happens. Our focus tonight, inshallah, just 4 solutions to how we can avoid this and how we can help this. Before we start, sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Number 1, the top solution is we need to address something called digital illiteracy. Being illiterate is not within writing or reading. Nowadays, it's within the digital world. Unfortunately, many older people do not understand how to use technological gadgets, the phones, the computers, or the AI now. Why? It's called digital illiteracy. Some kids, unfortunately, at the age of 3 and 2 and 4, are able to use these phones without us even knowing. They're able to go on YouTube, watch something, look at the views, look at the comments, look at the likes. And usually what the fathers usually do, joke. "Oh look, my son knows more than me." As if it's a joke. This is wrong. Why? How can we expect to safeguard our kids from such ideologies if we do not have knowledge in the path itself, in the industry itself? How can a father know what the child is holding and watching if he has no idea about how to use technology? Because these kids, they are consuming whatever they see, any information that come up from these devices, they consume it. So one of the solutions that may not happen, but it's there in other countries, in case people are watching it live or after the recording, is there are some movements that I've seen is people create courses for this. They make a specific program or a seminar or a course for fathers to understand how to use these digital apps. For example, they teach how to use parental lock, how to use age ratings according to each app, how to supervise their child. Because a father that doesn't know in the digital world, then he has no way of fulfilling his role of supervision. So the first one is we need to have digital literacy. Number 2, and solution number 2, is increase awareness. That we must be aware of what's going on. Saying halal and haram lightly does not work. You can't just sit somewhere and say that's halal and that's haram. Yes, it's good, but it's not enough. We must be aware of what's going on. When the game comes out, must know how to stop this game from becoming something harmful before it actually becomes something harmful. There's a game in 2016 or 2017 came out called Blue Whale. The idea of this game, Blue Whale, is it gives someone 50 tasks and it starts by harming themselves lightly. And then slowly, as you complete these tasks, it becomes worse and worse. Until the last task is suicide. The person then kills themselves. So we need to see this before it becomes a problem. We take preemptive strikes. Before this is happening, then we must find a way to stop it. Or for example, Pokemon Go in 2016, how many people died because of that game? They have their phones, they go around the streets, and they go to find those, the characters of Pokemon. Then at times they get hit by a car or something else happens to them. Why? They're not sure of what to do. So therefore, another solution is we could hold seminars or webinars on about each game that comes out that could be popular. Sometimes games you can see if they become popular or not, As soon as they're about to become popular, we'll find a solution to how to stop this. Third is we need to strive to find replacements for these TV shows and movies that may be portrayed for others to watch. Seems like everyone's distracted. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. ثانية غفر الله لكم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الثالثة بأعلى أصواتكم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Need help? All good? No, it's fine. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Third solution is we need to find a replacement. That these TV shows and the cartoons that exist, they have specific messages that we do not see. These cartoons that our kids watch, sometimes they are more dangerous than the MA15 plus or the 18 plus movies that we might see. Why? Because they have the messages of brainwashing the kids at that time. How many cartoons now that come up with, for example, the character has two mothers or the character has two fathers? And this is alarming. Why? Because it means it's attacking the kids. Now obviously the clear solution would be stop watching these. We as older people can stop watching movies, it's that simple. But for a kid, you make him stop watching cartoons, what's the solution? You have to give him a replacement. You have to give him a replacement that does not have any of these immoralities. For example, Film Al-Risale, very popular movie. This movie was quite popular, and the director, he said, give me the price of a tank or a price of a fighter jet, and I'll make you a movie that may change the entire world. Which is true. The Western view of Islam changed at that time when the movie was revealed. Until today, many people watch this movie. Therefore, we need to work on replacements. Number 4 is we need to provide right role models. Because we said role models, there are fake role models on the rise, and our kids take on these role models as people that they should become and inspired. We say these are wrong, therefore there's emptiness, and we must fill that void, fill that emptiness. Now you might tell me, but we have the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Correct, we do have the Imams. But what's wrong with the way we portray the Imams? We portray them as if they are historical figures. That they have lived in history, they have different lives, and now they've passed on. That we cannot be like them because they did not live the lives that we did. For example, when we see Imam Ali alayhi salam, كان يرقع ثوبه حتى استحيا من راقعه. That he used to patch his clothes until the people that patched his clothes became embarrassed. Or for example, كانت الزهراء تطحن بالرحى حتى مجلت يداها. She used to grain until what? Until her hands become blistered. And you tell me, how can we find these people, or these Imams, as role models, if they used to do something like that? First of all, there's 2 ways. First is we need to understand the historical analysis. The Imam Ali alayhi salam patches his clothes. That then was a sign of humility. That if you're a humble person back then, it was a sign of what? Humility. That if you're humble, you patch your own clothes. And that's what we need to do. We need to strive to be humble. The second thing is we need to apply these values. For example, when Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, was graining and her hands were blistered, showing that she's a good spouse to her husband. Yes, nowadays it's quite difficult to say to a woman that this is how you become a good spouse. But what we need to understand is the values of this and how we apply it today. The values of Fatima Zahra was to be a good spouse. How do we become a good spouse today? If Imam Ali alayhi salam used to patch his clothes as a sign of humility, how do we become humble today? We take the values of the Imams and we show and portray this to our generation of how to become a true Muslim, a true follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And one of the role models that many people do forget is Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim bin Aqil, his story is truly something heartbreaking. When it comes to his story, many people say, yeah, he's a cousin of the Imam, and that's it. But it's much more than that. He was the first person the Imam went to for a messenger. Trusted advisor, trusted cousin, and trusted brother of the Imam. The Imam told him, go to Kufa and check these messages. Because many people ask the question, why did the Imam go to Kufa if he had no supporters? Oh, he's doing the Imam received 20,000 or 12,000, letters and 8,000, I think, messages about coming towards Kufa. They were telling him, we'll support you. Imam Hussein alayhi salam sent Muslim bin Aqil, he said, verify this news. When Muslim entered Kufa, he was able to gather a big number of supporters. He went in the house of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi. He had a very large hall at the back, and in that hall he was able to fit 150 people. He used to have 150, until he reached 18,000 followers. And they all pledged allegiance to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But what was the problem? Is that Yazid, his advisor, told him to put Ibn Ziyad in charge of Kufa. He was in charge of Kufa, Mukhtar's father-in-law. When Ibn Ziyad came towards Kufa and he took charge of Kufa, he made a big deal. How? He looked everywhere and knew there was a movement going on, and he stopped this movement. Muslim said, let's just wait for the Imam and then we will attack. Don't want to take too long in the story. But at the end, the movement of Muslim bin Aqil in Kufa was eliminated. Ibn Ziyad said to the people, he said, if I see you fighting against me or with the Imam, then I will kill you and your family. Many people, when you tell them my family is involved, they get scared. So these 18,000 people, some of them were bribed with money, the others were threatened by the death of their family, and therefore they did not support the Imam of their time. Imagine on this night, it's a really good night to remember Muslim bin Aqil. Imagine he was with the lady that took care of him, that fed him. And as he was there, her son went to Ibn Ziyad and told him that Muslim resides here. As he resides here, Ibn Ziyad sent his army. What does that riwayah says? يا ابن عقيل حاضر فقد جاءك القوم من حيث تحذر. O son of Aqil, the people have come to you from places you feared. قال لا عليك ناوليني سيفي سأعيد صولات عمي أمير المؤمنين. He said, do not worry, I will have my sword with me and I will remember and recount the strikes of my uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. آليت إلا أقتل إلا حرا وإن رأيت الموت شيئا نكرا. He says, I am not going to die except as a free man. I'll not be killed except for a free man, even if I see something like death as miserable. Therefore, you can imagine the power of Muslim bin Aqil. They came towards him, they rushed towards Muslim bin Aqil. He fought them one by one, he fought them valiantly, he pushed them away from the house. He took all of them, made sure no one's inside the house, and as he was fighting, they said, this man is too strong. Therefore, they went to Ibn Ziyad and they told him, we need more supporters, give us more supporters. Ibn Ziyad said, I sent you to kill one man. Why are you struggling? He said, do you know who this man is? He did not send me to kill one of the people that work at a grocery shop. Rather, he sent me to kill the son of Aqil, the one that learnt bravery and the skill of sword from his uncle and his fathers. As they came towards him, you find a lot of people cornered Muslim bin Aqil. They put him in the center and they cornered him. Some threw rocks at him, some shot arrows at him, but the one of them, they hit the head of Muslim bin Aqil and his helmet fell. His helmet fell and the other person struck the spear in Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim bin Aqil fell on the ground and he was leaning on the wall. What did they tell him? They told him, do you cry? He said, the Muslim started crying. He says, why are you crying? He says, أبكي لحسين وآل حسين. He said, I don't cry for myself, I cry for Hussein and the family of Hussein. They say they dragged the body of Muslim and they sent him to the palace of Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad told him, he said, why didn't you say salam? He says, I don't say salam to you. He said, this is your Amir. He says, no, Amir is Hussein. That's who the Amir is. That is the true master. Then they said, what are the wishes that you have? He says, I've got 3 wishes. He said, the first one is allow me to pray 2 rak'ah before you kill me. Second, give me a proper burial. He says, third, give me a sip of water before I die. He says, as for the first one, then we will let you. As for the second one, then no chance. As for the third one, then we will give you some. Then Ibn Ziyad said, who here wants to take vengeance on Muslim bin Aqil? One of the men said, me, I want to go. He went and he kicked the head of Muslim bin Aqil. Then they went and took him to the top of the palace. He prayed his 2 rak'at. He said, I'm thirsty, give me some water. They gave him that water. They say, the Rawaya says, this blood fell in the water. He threw that water. He said, look, you become impure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want me to drink. Then what did they say? He said, you're going to die. Any final words? He said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. All the martyrs of Karbala, they all said salam to the Imam before they left. Then that person, the Mal'oon, beheaded the head of Muslim. Then they pushed his body from the top of the palace. Then they took his body, they dragged it all on the streets of Kufa. What's happening right now in Karbala? Or on the way towards Karbala? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam knows this. He said, where's Hamida? Give me Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. He goes to Hamida and he puts his hand on her head. He pats her head. He said, oh Imam, oh Master.